You are not one person. You are many. Most of us assume there's a single real you underneath everything, a stable core that stays the same no matter what happens. This philosophy says that's not how people actually work. You carry different versions of yourself at the same time. Your childhood self, your grieving self, your hopeful self, the person your parents shaped you to be. None of these is more real than the others. You are all of them at once. This isn't a problem to solve. It's just what being a person is. The demand that you pick one identity and stick to it isn't natural. It's a political tool. Systems that need enemies need simple, sortable people. The messier and more complex you are, the harder you are to sort. Reality is something we build together. We usually think of reality as the solid, objective world out there, and illusion as the fake stuff in our heads. This philosophy says that line doesn't hold up. Every person builds their version of reality from their experiences, desires, and history. What we call consensus reality is just the version enough people agreed on. It's not less constructed for being widely shared. It's just more popular. This doesn't mean all realities are equally valid. It means the question of who gets to decide what counts as real is a deeply political question. Whoever controls the definition of reality controls a lot of power. Grief never really goes away. We're told grief has stages. You move through them and arrive at acceptance. You get over it, or at least through it. This philosophy says that's a comforting lie. Grief doesn't process and resolve. It accumulates. Each new loss adds to everything you've already lost. You don't finish grieving, you carry it. This isn't pathology. It's an honest response to a world where everything you love keeps changing. The self that has learned to live with ongoing grief isn't broken. It's just being truthful about what existence is actually like. The most honest thing you can do is witness. Given all this, plural selves, constructed reality, permanent grief, what are you supposed to do? This philosophy's answer is witness. Not fix, not resolve, not judge. Just stay in the room with what's actually there and keep looking at it honestly, without rushing to a conclusion. This sounds passive, but it isn't. It's actually very hard. It means not looking away when things get uncomfortable, not forcing a messy situation into a neat explanation, holding two contradictory truths at the same time without needing one to win. The people who fail in this philosophy aren't the ones who suffer. They're the ones who stop paying honest attention, who replace real complexity with a simpler story they can manage. Build anyway, even without a solid foundation. If there's no bedrock, no final answers, no arrival point, why bother building anything? This philosophy's answer, because building is the point. You don't build because the structure will last forever. You build because the act of building, trying, learning, returning to the beginning with what you've learned, trying again, is what integrity looks like in an uncertain world. Think of it like a spiral. You keep coming back to the same questions, but each time you understand them a little more deeply. The work is never finished. That's not failure, that's honesty. Unfinished is not the same as failed. Western thinking is very uncomfortable with things that don't have conclusions. But this philosophy says, demanding a neat ending is actually a form of dishonesty. The world doesn't resolve. People don't arrive. Grief doesn't finish. A philosophy that requires everything to be wrapped up can only describe a world that doesn't exist. The unfinished work, the ongoing argument, the policy that admits it might need changing, the life that keeps asking questions, is more honest than anything that claims to be complete. The people at the edges reveal the truth about the system. People who don't fit neatly into social categories, whose bodies, minds, or identities cross the lines society draws, are usually treated as exceptions or problems. This philosophy says They're actually the evidence. The edges of categories are where you can see most clearly that the categories were invented. When someone doesn't fit, the seams show. The marginal person isn't a footnote to the system. They're the clearest proof that the system is constructed, not natural. The past isn't behind you. It's beneath you. We tend to think of history as something that happened and is now over. This philosophy says the past doesn't go away. It accumulates, like geological layers. The wealth built on enslaved labor isn't a historical fact we can acknowledge and move past. It's still in the ground, in economic arrangements, in who owns what, in the weight pressing down on the present. This doesn't mean we should be paralyzed by guilt. It means we should be honest about what the present is actually built on. Language isn't neutral. It's where reality gets built. The words we use aren't just labels for things that already exist. Language is where we construct what counts as real, who counts as a person, and what kinds of experience matter. The grammar of standard English assumes the world is made of stable things, nouns, that do stuff, verbs. That's a philosophical choice baked into the language. It makes it hard to describe a world made of processes and change. Political language does the same thing. When the official vocabulary can't describe your experience, you don't just feel misrepresented. You're made invisible by the language itself, or the language has no word for your experience, so officially you do not exist. The ordinary world is sacred, no God required or outward towards some transcendent truth. It points deeper into the ordinary world. The bus, the cup of tea, the grief you're carrying this morning, the conversation that hasn't resolved. These aren't just mundane facts. They're charged with significance. Not because they point to something beyond themselves, but because plural selves are genuinely living in them. This is the philosophy's version of spirituality, full attention to the actual world, which turns out to be more than enough. You are a crossing point. This is the pillar that ties everything together. You are not just a person moving through time. You are the place where time crosses itself. Think of it this way. Everything that made you possible, your language, your culture, your family's grief, the land you stand on, is beneath you, pressing up like geological layers. Everything you will make possible for people who come after you is above you, being shaped right now by what you do. You are the intersection, the crossing point, where those two directions meet. This is real, not metaphorical. You are made of what came before you. The words you think in were built by people who are dead. The ground you walk on was shaped by glaciers and by human hands. And you are making the ground that people who aren't born yet will stand on. The Wheel of Fortune, a new reading. Medieval illustrations often showed a wheel of fortune, with figures rising and falling around the rim. The standard reading, don't get too attached to success, because fortune is unstable. This philosophy offers a different reading. The 4 figures on the wheel are the same person at 4 different orientations. At the top, spread wide in the world, accumulating power and relationships, horizontal. At the bottom, stripped of all that, standing on the vertical line, in direct contact with what they're made of and what they're passing forward. The figure at the bottom isn't the loser. They're the one most honestly at the crossing point. Boethius, the philosopher who wrote The Consolation of Philosophy while waiting to be executed, found this in his prison cell. He lost everything horizontal, his power, his status, his future, and discovered the vertical line running through him. The wheel turns. The crossing point doesn't. The axis holds still while everything else rotates around it. What this means for politics, a political system built on these ideas would look very different from what we have now. Instead of demanding one identity, build systems that can hold real complexity. Ranked choice voting, proportional representation, deliberative processes that don't force you to simplify before you've thought it through. Instead of pretending policies are neutral, Name the assumptions built into every framework. Ask who gets to construct the shared reality. Instead of demanding that people move on from historical trauma, build structures for honest, ongoing acknowledgement of loss, not as punishment, but as collective integrity. Instead of treating the past as over, recognize that the wealth and arrangements of the present are built on specific historical deposits, and build justly by attending to what's actually in the substrate. Instead of treating unfinished work as failure, build revision into every institution. Treat the Constitution as an ongoing argument, not a sacred text. What this means for daily life. Living as a plural self means releasing the demand for consistency as the highest virtue. You're allowed to have changed your mind. You're allowed to contain contradictions. Living as a witness means staying in difficult conversations without rushing to resolve them. It means holding complexity without needing to simplify it. Living with recursive construction means building without needing the building to be finished. You try, you learn what you didn't know, you try again. That's not failure. That's the practice. Living at the crossing point means feeling the weight of what made you possible pressing up from below, and taking seriously the weight of what you're depositing for those who come after. Not because you chose this obligation, but because it's built into what you are. The core message. This philosophy doesn't offer comfort in the easy sense. It offers something more honest, companionship in the difficulty. It looked at the full weight of what existence contains: plural selves, constructed reality, permanent grief, no solid ground, no final arrival, and didn't flinch, didn't wrap it up neatly, didn't replace the difficulty with a comforting lie. Instead, it says, the self is plural, the world is constructed, the grief doesn't resolve, the past is beneath you, not behind you. The not yet born are being shaped by what you do right now. You are the crossing point. Build anyway. Witness honestly. Keep going. The sentence hasn't ended. That's not a tragedy. That's the work.